I'm coming for what I'm owed.
I command thee to deliver your souls to me.
Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily Reddit content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact and it's totally science. Go ahead and look it up. Today we're jumping into r/RPG-Horror-Stories because you know I love it so much. Like most of the content on this channel, it is Neckbeard adjacent, whether we're talking Neckbeard players or Neckbeard GMs. And we even have a little bit of beard baiting, which is similar to the Ramtide stories. And this story was suggested by Destroyer Inazuma. But we're going to build up to it. We're going to do some less worse stories, and then like a middle worst story, and then the ultimate worst story. At least I think that's how it's going to go. I guess we'll see. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and jump right into this thing. Killed Session 1 and called stupid for it. Neckbeard GM. Called it. This story happened a year or two ago, but it still makes me salty whenever I'm reminded of it. DM is starting a new campaign, and he's an experienced DM, so I trusted that he'd do my character well. Campaign starts at level 5, online on Roll20. 2 weeks before the session starts, I write out my character's backstory. Long story short is that he was a fallen Aasimar, FA for short, who formerly had a pact with a demon, but he wanted to repent for his sins and wrongdoings in the past. With the help of his husband, he turned a new leaf and becomes a cleric for hubby's god. I ask for feedback from the Dungeon Master, wanting to make sure that everything's alright with his backstory, and the Dungeon Master says,
It's great, and he can't wait to work with this.
So with that approval, I relax and wait for Session 1. 3 out of the 5 of us are there because 2 got called back into work in the last minute. We start anyways, and we start off traveling to get a bounty. On the way to the bounty, we take a long rest. DM asks me, high or low? I'm a little nervous, but I pick high. Dungeon Master cackles and says,
The 3 of you are awakened by what sounds like a tear in the sky. Fallen Aasimar, you hear your patron's voice say, I'm coming for what I'm owed. Now all of you, roll initiative.
Oh snap. We are met with a Glabrezu, which goes first. The Glabrezu attacks me with power word stun. We're level 5, so of course I get stunned. Other 2 party members try to attack, but they roll low and miss. I rolled a lucky saving throw, and I'm no longer stunned, but that was my turn. The Glabrezu then uses all 4 of its attacks on me, and it hits all of them. But my character is barely hanging on. Party members try and get me out, but their damage isn't enough. My character can't feasibly break out of the Glabrezu's grasp, as one of its attacks grapples if it hits, so I just try and heal myself. The Glabrezu then uses all 4 attacks on me again, and outright kills my character. The Dungeon Master happily explains
how it rips into the fallen Aasimar's chest, pulling out its soul, and leaves from the portal from whence it came.
We are 30 minutes into the session, and I am shaking and a bit upset. We didn't talk about this at all. Why didn't you at least give me a heads up about this? The Dungeon Master responds curtly with,
I don't know what you were expecting. You broke your pact, so of course your patron would want your soul.
Okay, but you threw a monster at us that a level 5 party couldn't really handle. And you only targeted me through the entire fight. How was that a fair fight, I ask?
If you weren't so stupid, then you wouldn't have died. Try coming up with a better backstory that doesn't involve a fucking demon,
the Dungeon Master replies. I'm obviously fuming at this point, some tears as well. You said the backstory was fine. Why would you approve of a backstory if you didn't like it?
I liked it. It's not my fault you were stupid about it. What were you expecting when you left your patron?
The Dungeon Master now laughs.
Here's your new character sheet.
I spend the rest of the session muted and pissed, upset, and crying to the point that I get a migraine. I did stay in the campaign because my friends were in it, and the Dungeon Master and I are friends in real life. Got called stupid by the DM for the small decisions that my new character made too, and the way he acted. The session obviously died not too long after because people were kind of tired of the DM's shit, and the DM was also tired of us. A shorter story, but thank you for reading. As a Dungeon Master, I would definitely throw a few demons at the party, but not demons that would overwhelm and kill them 30 minutes into the first session. Like, what is wrong with you? At that point, you're just trying to make people hate their hobby and possibly even hate you as a person, because you're like brushing them off and just being a general weenie. Like, hey, oh, well, here's a new character sheet. And then even when he rolls a new character, you're still like insulting him. OP says this DM is a friend of his, but sure wouldn't be a friend of mine for very long. I hope that it was more than just the session that died. Like, obviously, this is a campaign that won't be persisting for very long because the DM is basically only out there to torture people. Hey, did you spend time working on that character? That's great. He's dead now. Glabrezus are totally fucked up as far as monsters to fight. Even if their entire party of 5 people was there, they would not have won. Especially if a monster with 4 attacks per round is just focus firing one person. It's so purposeful. Shame on that DM. Definitely one of the least talented DMs that I've ever seen. Even if he is experienced, as the OP said, I don't think he's had a very large number of quality games. Maybe a large number of games that he's been the dungeon master for, but quality over quantity, especially in this case. For God's sake, just let people enjoy things. But not in all cases, as we shall see in our next story. There is a molestation trigger warning. I will warn you of that. It's right in the title. But if you think you're ready, then let's dive into it. Child molesting pervy dwarf. God, I don't know why I picked this one. So we've been running a revised Rise of Tiamat campaign since this summer. A few of our players had to quit, so a friend of mine brought one of his friends on board to play. This guy, let's just call him SG. What does SG stand for? Super gross? Probably. So Super Gross decides to roll a dwarf rogue with a noble background. All good. Since his character came from a wealthy family, I gave him the opportunity of designing a small region, just south of Longsaddle in the Forgotten Realms setting. Well, that's nice of ya. This is when things start going downhill. I ask him a few questions to help flesh out his background a bit more. OP, why'd your character become a rogue? Super Gross,
Because rogues do it from behind, obviously.
OP, what's his name? Super Gross,
Trabant du Manche.
We play in French, so his character name sounds like Trop Bon du Manche or Too Good with his handle / shaft. OP? Okay. What's his family history like? Super Gross.
Well, his mother was a human, and she slept with a dwarf who had incredible prowess in bed. So she decided to name their son Trabant in honor of his father's skill in bed.
Because that's something that happens. If that was the case, my name would be like Premature or something. Just burn my biological father. I then asked if he'd like to come up with a map of the region that his character comes from, which he agrees to. He sends me a map of this region called La Manche. As you know by now, manche means handle or shaft, as in broom handle, which is also slang for penis. It doesn't sound so bad, as it isn't slang that's too common. As you've probably guessed, this whole region is shaped like a giant schlong. Built along a river named La Rivière Blanche, the White River. The end of the shaft is named Cap Rose. Pink Cape, as in the geological feature. The main city located north of the shaft was named White Lake, which was known for its special white algae that sold for fortunes as they contained potent aphrodisiacs. This guy really thought this out. A small city along the middle of the shaft is named Le Manchon, Little Shaft, or Penguin. Whatever, this is most likely never going to come up in our game anyways, or so I think, like the naive little DM that I am. This brings us to the second part of our story, where the group ends up meeting the dwarf rogue, who had been sent by the Harpers to help guide the group to the lair of a black dragon who'd been terrorizing the nearby swamp. OP. So, the lizardfolk chieftain lets you know that another soft skin has arrived. He should be around the village somewhere. OP to Super Gross. So is your character anywhere to be found? Super Gross.
Yeah, he's at the brothel.
OP. There are no brothels in lizardfolk villages. Super Gross.
Oh, Well, I'm banging the chieftain's wife.
OP. Okay, the chieftain tells you that the dwarf was last seen conversing with his mate in his tent. Super gross.
I walk out of the chieftain's tent and pull up my pants, letting the group take a look at my massive dwarven cannon.
The group? What? The group ends up finding a hag coven, and one of them had been abducted by the dragon to use as leverage against the other two. They ask the group to go and slay the dragon and free their sister. Super gross.
I tell the hags that if they tell me where they hide their treasure, I won't blow my load in this pot of soup right here.
I had previously described a pot of soup with human flesh inside, and his character was jerking off into it. What the hell? The hags, of course, are insulted and teleport the party out into the middle of the swamp. They have no idea where they are and spend the better part of the day trying to find their way. As they find the dragon's lair, in Old Colt's building, Supergross removes his clothing, stating,
This place is giving me a major case of swamp ass. I'm sweaty all over. I go ahead and knock on the building's front door. If the dragon answers, I'll seduce it.
Yeah, sweaty little dwarf. That's exactly what dragons are into. This goes about as well as you'd expect. The dragon arrives behind them with a bunch of kobolds on its back, tossing rocks and dung buckets at them. They almost end up dying as the dwarf stumbles into a hidden underwater pit with a giant crocodile in it. They're saved when Supergross starts doing the helicopter dick towards the dragon. Disgusted, the dragon asks why he's even bothering with these imbeciles, and sends 2 trolls to take them out. One of them is a female troll. Super gross.
I try and tug at her nipples.
He rolls for acrobatics. Anyways, they end up surviving by the skin of their teeth, and Supergross starts raping the troll's corpse. Aw, come on. I tell him that's absolutely disgusting, and he's too exhausted to get it up, so he is in fact not raping that corpse. God, this is gonna get demonetized. Inside the dragon's lair, they free a bunch of prisoners. Supergross tries to seduce the women immediately and fondles some of the younger girls that I described as being between 14 and 17. He tries to get sexual favors from the hag, stating that
toothless women give the best blowies.
Well, he ain't wrong, I assume. Anyways, that's about where it ends, thank God. They defeat the dragon, it turns into a Dracolich before leaving, and they head back into Waterdeep. They get sent to Cholt to find a black dragon mask to try and stop Tiamat's return. Supergross doesn't show up for a few games because of work and personal issues. A lot of personal issues. One evening, as we're nearing the end of the dungeon, he doesn't show up after he said he would. He doesn't answer his phone. He doesn't answer Facebook. So we go to his place, worried, because he had drug abuse issues in the past, and we were worried that he'd relapsed. But he doesn't answer his door either, and his car is in the parking lot. Not much else we can do, so we go back to my place to resume the game. Later during the week, he texts us on Facebook to tell us that
he lost his job and wasn't feeling too good, and he apologizes for not being there.
All good. Shit happens. Whatever. He comes back to the next game and starts his pervy shenanigans again. This time, however, he starts messing around with the other players. He gives the elf the white seaweed from LeBlanc, that potent aphrodisiac that I mentioned before, and he tells me
he should roll a constitution check to see if he pops a boner.
I tell him that elves are immune to such things. Not true, I don't think, but whatever. Nobody's gonna check that. He eventually retires his dwarf to make a half-orc barbarian. His dwarf is tired of the adventuring life and wants to go back to being a Harper bureaucrat. He plays for 2 to 3 more games until he disappears from the face of the earth. This is around early September. I'd also like to add that his perverted nonsense was also out of game. Whenever I'd drop him off at his place after our games and he had to stop at the convenience store, he'd comment on how
he'd screw the brains out of that cashier.
He kept talking about
how many girls he'd screwed and how many threesomes,
etc. Anyways, long story short, we learned that he'd been taken into custody after multiple underage girls, 12 to 14 years old, hate it, had accused him of sexual assault and rape. The news article even mentions that the events had taken place around the time where he wouldn't answer at the apartment door. So basically, I just had his characters hang publicly for some made-up crime and called it a day. If only you could do that to the actual player. I feel sick just thinking about it, but damn. I wasn't even surprised, after I learned that he was a child rapist, how his character was acting in-game. TLDR. Considering that this guy was 28 years old, that is like way too many sex jokes and innuendos and such. I think that without a doubt he was compensating for something. Probably impotent or, micro-penis. That's why he only went after girls who were obviously inexperienced due to their age. God, I hate this. So cringy. Like, I'm laughing at the parts where it's happening in the story, but as soon as it leaks into real life, I'm like, God damn. That is just the worst thing ever. I guess I should have seen it coming due to, like, his endless fixation, but... man, it's always heavier than I expected. I never take the titles completely seriously, no matter how bad they are, and then I kick myself in the ass later. I'm super glad that his characters got hanged, but like, I'm serious when I say that I wish the actual player could be hanged, because this type of stuff is just heinous. I don't understand what possesses somebody to do something like that, but I think that he should have been kicked out of this campaign long before, these accusations came to light. Obviously, he's ruining the atmosphere, like a joke here and there, that's kind of funny, But if all you're doing is like trying to bang dragons and swinging on a troll's nipples, like you're not taking this game seriously, You're never gonna get any good roleplay out of a character like that anyways. He should go find a group that's, more suited to his interest. A group of sex-driven murder hobos or something like that. Oh God. I try and laugh and keep it light, but God, that is some disgusting stuff. A potent reminder that the worst monsters out there aren't the ones in the monster manual. Beware of people like this. Horrible. I guess we'll get into the next one. And again, the subject matter is a little bit heavy, but at least we get to see justice done, I think. So let's see how it goes. To Catch a Predator. D&D edition. Yes, I'm so into beard bait lately. It's not like it sounds. Not bait and beards, just beard bait. Never mind. I used to be a part of a West Marches Discord D&D server months ago. As a reference, West Marches servers are essentially servers that focus on one-shots for one particular setting, allowing the characters the player plays to progress through different one-shots and different DMs. Although the accessibility is a huge plus, allowing for newbies and veterans alike to hang out, being able to adjust for a tight schedule easy, this can also make way for plenty of bad people to leech on and not let go. These were one of those times, with the case of Howard, a 22-year-old male, name replaced for anonymity of course. Don't worry, the title will make sense later on. Howard, that's a perfect pervert name. Trigger warning for pedophilia, obviously, grooming, mentions of rape, and general creepiness that you'd find from any nice guy on the internet. Yeah, this channel seems to run into a lot of that. Deep breath. Okay. When he first came onto the server, it didn't take long to give off a negative impression, even if he seemed nice at the start. He played an assassin rogue wood elf named Fulred, with some convoluted backstory involving him being drafted as a soldier into war when he was a child. Something happened, I believe something involving a cult, that led to his sister being trapped in some kind of amulet. He had this odd, magical version of dissociative identity disorder, where he would switch to this character called White whenever he got pissed off, going completely feral and threatening to kill people, having even attacked my character when he was taken to the temple he resided in for help. The first time he switched was during roleplay, in between games, when a drow tavern owner told him off for not respecting other people's boundaries, alongside his need to be mothered by people around him. Now, I didn't get the second part, but the first part was very apparent when I scrolled upwards, when he and his raven was invading the personal space of her and her girlfriend. This was the first red flag. especially when he made extremely passive-aggressive out-of-character comments about her and me, an innocent bystander who just wanted a bento box from the kitchen. However, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, as sometimes I wound up taking in-character things kinda personal at times. I thought this was the case, and technically I was right, but oh boy, things got worse from there. A server was created about his shenanigans, constantly sharing memes about him and what he did. There's so many stories I could tell, but this story would go on for hours if I talked about them all. Please write that post. I want to go on for hours about this. As time went on, Howard started to get suspicious. After his in-character girlfriend had to leave the server, Full Red got a crush on literally every girl he met. He made really creepy out-of-character comments regarding other people's female characters, including, but not limited to, calling one of my friend's NPCs the town's next public urinal for having an active sex life. And he even made a second character, a female Dampier named Nicolette. As Nicolette, he constantly stated in character about how
She was a girl and a vampire.
to the point of where that was just the entire extent of her personality. He also sexualized her quite a bit, to the point of where one time he literally listed her breast size when giving a description of her. They were double Ds, of course, because why wouldn't they be? So yeah, very obvious fetish integration on a D&D server full of minors. Class act. I started to get more and more suspicious of his behavior towards women in character and out of character, and it spiraled during the private messages of a female character, played by a past friend of mine. She was talking to Full Red about how she was continuously raped as a child. The first out-of-character comment he made about the reveal was essentially,
She's not a virgin? Oh well, Nicolette can fix that.
For context, he associated a broken hymen with losing your virginity, so he believed if you regenerated the spell, your hymen, that it would be restoring your virginity. Weird as fuck, I know. By that logic, there's a lot of women out there who have lost their virginity to, like, a bicycle seat. That ain't how it works, bro. Oh, God. After that, I had a bit of an idea. I wound up leaving the server at the time, due to many reasons that I'd rather not say here. Keep in mind, though, he was partly the reason. And even though I left, I still cared about the server, and I was legitimately afraid of Howard at that point. I wanted to make sure that he wasn't being predatory with any girls on the server, especially underage ones. He was already pretty sexual with a minor, one of my other friends. That friend was a guy, and clearly uncomfortable with the interaction, but Howard was still persistent. When a seemingly normal conversation delved into some sort of odd fantasy of his, of my friend being the boss of some company and getting his dick sucked under the desk, though I didn't hear about all this until a bit after. So I had a plan to make sure that if he is being predatory, his ass will get booted off the server, for good. I posed as a 16-year-old girl from Nevada by the name of Emily. My character was an Aasimar that looked like a half-elf, as I knew his type by then to be elvish. Due to one of Full Red's magical items being magical angel wings that sprouted out during roleplay whenever he wanted to act like the epitome of goodness and compassion, I knew he also had a fixation for angels. I named her Ella, and she was essentially a cheery and excitable bimbo cheerleader stereotype who liked to garden and sing. Basically, Howard's dream girl from what I'd seen. She was a divine soul sorcerer / bard mix. I made Emily's personality similar to Ella's, even being a cheerleader in real life herself. I also made absolute sure that no one knew I was pretending to be her, not even my friends. I even swapped the time zones on my phone to replicate Nevada when I sent evidence to the admins. Only my boyfriend knew, and he left the server with me. I changed my typing style to be grammatically pristine, and I used my emoji button like there's no tomorrow. I was fucking ready. No matter how long it took, I would make sure that this guy wasn't harming little girls. Not all heroes wear capes. He took the bait immediately after I posted my reference for her. He claimed Ella to be
So fucking hot.
after seeing her reference photo, leaving a little hard eyes emoji reaction below it. I was legitimately surprised that he took it so quickly, and he took that bait hard. After a brief run-in with him, my character left because I was getting bored and he was clearly busy. He then private messaged me, expressing
his disappointment about not being able to talk to her so they can not to be friendos.
what, like more than friendos? I don't understand. But I do understand that it was a clear flirt, despite the fact that Full Red was at the time engaged. The very first message. And he already tried to joke flirt about our characters. I responded, obviously not feeding his advances to see if he would proceed further. And of course he did, with highlights such as,
Ooh, private conversation with Full Red? Haha, well, so, a beautiful cheerleader who's nerded for D&D and is super smart in classes? Sounds pretty much perfect. Lol. And, nice, good dreams. I bet I could guess what you were dreaming about. Wink emoji.
He used the wink emoji a lot during our conversations, by the way, at least 10 times, and we did not talk that often. One of his personal favorites when I was talking about how Ella basically turned her spare room into a greenhouse. I was listing off the various flowers that she had in there, and he responded with,
Jokingly speaking, if she's in a tiny garden, would she be the primrose, too precious to deflower? Pluck from the Garden of Beauty? I bet Eve would be jealous Adam picked someone else, lol.
God, even his come-ons are clunky and juvenile. You said this guy's in his 20s? He's like 14 in his head. This personally made me realize how much Howard had taken this bait. He didn't just swallow the worm, not even the hook. He swallowed the whole damn fishing line. Of course, this was only towards my character, but I knew that if he was charmed by Ella that easily, Emily wouldn't be much of an exception. I gave him my first sign that I was a minor, claiming that I was in school so my responses would be sparse. Of course, in online classes, due to the pandemic, this did not stop his flirting, as he responded to this reveal by saying,
I see. Good girl for being a good student. Don't let me distract you too much. Wink emoji.
Which really rubbed me the wrong way. Big time. But this couldn't have been the first reveal because he already said that she was good in classes or something like that. Whatever. Anyways, I revealed my grade a bit afterwards alongside my age. Now, the reason I picked Nevada was one thing and one thing only. The legal age there is 16. Of course, that doesn't mean his flirting is any less creepy, and that doesn't mitigate the age of consent laws over Discord and the internet in general, which is 18. However, I had the feeling that the consent laws for Nevada, which I did state were a thing as Emily, would prevent him from being scared away, and oh boy, it didn't. In fact, it seemed like it made him even more enticed. I want to know how you brought that one up. By the way, the age of consent is 16.
Oh boy.
God damn it. I talked more about my life, which was of course fabricated to hell and back. He wanted to voice chat, but I simply gave the excuse that I was mute, in case he would recognize my voice if I spoke out. He started to get extremely simpy, even more so than he did with that flower comment. He exclaimed about
how smart I was,
and I asked why. And he went on an entire psychoanalytical rant regarding my
proper grammar and how I played my character to be purposely sociable.
Which, he did get it pretty right on the nose. I made Ella an everybody's friend type of character. A beacon of positive energy as a means of being able to attract his character towards me. In the end, he exclaimed,
or TLDR, I could just Sherlock Holmes the crap out of you and I could tell.
With, of course, yet another winky emoji. This man used winky emojis in those few days more than I have ever used them in my life. I found that pretty funny considering how I was pretending to be someone else the entire time. Either way, the next day passed and we talked a bit more. He gave me more information about himself, saying
he was 22 years old and training to be a pharmacist.
Yet still considered himself a doctor despite not having a PhD yet. I talked about being in Nevada, my school life, being a cheerleader, and how I wanted to go into the medical field. He mentioned how
a sexy nurse's costume or sexy scrubs would be a nice look for Halloween.
Keep in mind, he did know that I was 16. He showed pictures of his pet, which was about the only truly wholesome thing about our conversations together. The cat was actually really cute, and I still smile at photos of it from time to time. At least he's not a cat hater, I guess. Yeah, he loves It's low-hanging fruit. Sorry. After some time, I had to take a shower. This gave me the idea to bait him one last time, by of course saying that I'm taking a shower. And dear Lord, he didn't just swallow the fishing line with that. He swallowed the boat. He said,
"Oh, don't tease me like that, baby,"
with another goddamn wink emoji. I knew this man for 5 days, and he had already expressed signs of grooming, from the constant over-complimenting and sexual references, constant directly sexual flirting, very simp-like behavior towards both Ella and Emily, and he had a flag so red that it could pierce through the rosiest glasses fucking imaginable. Keep in mind, not only have y'all not seen it all because, again, I'd be here all day, I didn't even flirt back with him. I constantly switched topics, ignored his flirtatious behavior, and tried to essentially be this oblivious little girl that didn't know shit. The only thing I did that reassured him was state that despite being 16, I/Emily was still considered a legal adult in Nevada. Not even once on Discord or the internet in general, in Nevada. Maybe, just maybe, you could consider the time that I referenced sex once as flirting. Maybe. But even then, that nowhere near justifies the gross behavior that he exemplified towards a kid. This was the last straw. At that point, I was legitimately stunned. Not just surprised, I was actually scared, paranoid. It was hard to sleep that night. If he said all of this to a non-existent girl over the course of 5 days, what about the real little girls who were legitimately oblivious to his advances, and he would have stayed in contact with them for longer? For weeks? Months? Years? I had to tell the admins. After giving them the evidence, it literally took them minutes to decide to ban him, when otherwise he could have stayed there for many months longer, preying on minors on the server and manipulating them into doing awful things. And God, I pray that when I told him off for doing this, still pretending to be Emily one last time, that he had his lesson. If not, then he might still be grooming girls to this day. I don't want to give away his Discord tag in case he did learn his lesson, but please, if you see creepy behavior, don't be afraid to call them out on it. Let others know. We can't let people like this get away with shit like this, and Howard, if you're reading this, take the words that I've said and use it to better yourself. Don't play the victim card. Your behavior can legitimately traumatize little girls and can land you in jail, which is probably what you deserve anyways. Plus, if you're planning on being in the medical field, they are very unforgiving towards creepy individuals, especially those who have pedophile-like behavior. Even if you're miraculously not an actual pedophile, which he totally is, go to therapy. Stop being a dick.
Stop it. Get some help.
TLDR. If y'all want more stories about Howard, let me know. There was a time he derailed an entire mission and had the party tie him up and almost kill him, only to basically say,
"It's a prank, bro."
And then there's the temple incident, and I'm sure I could find some more through my old friends. If you have any questions, ask me in the replies or the DMs. See y'all later. Peace. Well, this story honestly wasn't as horrible as the second one, but it also didn't give the sense of closure that the second one did. So I hate to be that guy, but he probably did just find another server. There's not a whole lot that's keeping him from just going and doing the same thing somewhere else, I hope to high heaven that he gets caught, put in jail, and spends many, many years getting the crap beat out of him before getting shivved in the prison shower. And that might seem like a little bit of an overreaction, but honestly, if you think that this guy wouldn't take things further if the door was open to him, then you're only kidding yourself. He definitely would. This isn't some guy being sexual and silly in a roleplay like in Story 2, which might slip under my radar, honestly. I've made a few innuendo myself, But this is like expressly going into an underage girl's DMs and being like, "I want to deflower you. You like gardening? Let me put my dick in you." Isn't there a Bible quote or something that's like, if your eye causes you to sin, then you should pluck it out? And I think that we should probably pluck this guy's eyes out, and then he can only do the wink emoji from now on. Since you like it so damn much, castrate him, cut off his hand, take off his eyes. Now he can't hurt anybody. Now you can go and live a full and normal life, can't you, Howard? If I stumble across somebody like this, you better believe I'm giving out their Discord name, and their actual name, and their address, and their personal phone number, and all their family's phone number, so everybody around them can know exactly what a piece of shit they are associating with. Call up his mom and tell him that she raised a sex offender. We're just here to pretend to be wizards and kill goblins, aren't we? You don't need to turn it into like some dating chat room. God, I hate it. But you know what I love? Truly. When you guys like, comment, and or subscribe. Hell yeah, segue. You could also share the video around because that's an ultra cool thing to do. I also hope you'll check out the links in the description. We got that PayPal, Patreon, Twitter, Discord, Facebook. I'm going to start posting original stories on Facebook, so you guys can look forward to that. And then there's my other channel. There might be some other stuff down there too. And of course, I would be remiss not to thank my gorgeous, beautiful, generous, wonderful patrons. We've got Lady Nix, Crimson Albedo, Dot Nathan, Robert Waits, Just Austin, Pope Squid, Rebecca H, Cider Drinker, Tato Ferret, The Last Shinobi, and Mark 211. Thank you guys so much for helping me to live the dream. If anybody else could support monetarily, that's massively appreciated, of course. But if you can't, no problem, no pressure. I just appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I hope that you come on back and hang out with me tomorrow. In order to do so, you will need to keep yourself mentally and physically safe. Physically, let's wash our hands. That's extremely important. Mentally, just take some time out and do something that you enjoy today. Have a little relaxation session, you know? Because always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely, definitely deserve it. I'll see you again tomorrow. And until then, bye-bye.